Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. This is your podcast for all things horror, out from the Horrorbox. I'm your merry and bright host, Dom, and in this Christmas special, we're going to take a look at the 2024 Christmas supernatural slasher film from writer, editor, and director Damien Leone, the third installment of the Terrifier series. Plus, we'll end off with some scary stories. Leading up to Christmas, Sienna Shaw attempts to rebuild her life while being pursued by Art the Clown alongside his new accomplice, possessed Victoria Hayes, in Terrifier 3. So stoke the fire, leave out some cookies for Santa, and let the spirit take you. Following the critical and commercial success of Terrifier 2, Damien Leone began work on the script for Terrifier 3 with the focus on creating a more cohesive and overarching narrative for the franchise. One of Leone's primary goals was to give Victoria Hayes, who had had a prominent role in the first film, Terrifier, a decision that he said he regret over her underdevelopment in that film. Victoria had been introduced as a significant character, but was ultimately sidelined for other storylines and left many fans wondering about her backstory and potential. So with Terrifier 3, Leone was determined to correct this oversight, making her a more central character in the third installment and allowing for a deeper exploration of her arc, which would shift from a supporting role to a more complex, multifaceted figure in the series. And let's see exactly how he decided to do that. For Terrifier 3, Damien Leone turned the character of Victoria Hayes into a heroine-turned-villainous type and gave her a much more prominent role compared to her appearances in Terrifier and its sequel. This shift is partly due to Damien Leone's biggest regret from the original film, leaving Victoria underdeveloped. So with Terrifier 3, Leone revisited her character, expanding the narrative and allowing for a significant character growth. In the original ending of Terrifier 2, it was set to culminate in Victoria's demise at the start of the third film. But Leone decided to abandon that direction, feeling that it was too reminiscent of the plot twist in *Malignant*. So during the conceptualization of the film's infamous birthing scene, Leone chose instead to keep Victoria alive, largely because he enjoyed working with actress Samantha Scafidi, which hopefully I'm not butchering, and wanted to explore her character more deeply. The cast of Terrifier 3 grew in excitement and anticipation throughout 2023 and 2024, with several notable stars confirmed to join the project. In December 2023, it was revealed that wrestler-turned-actor Chris Jericho would make an appearance. Then the following month saw further announcements. In April 2024, veteran actor Daniel Roebuck was confirmed to play Santa Claus in the film. Then in May 2024, horror legend Tom Savini joined the cast, followed by Jason Patric's inclusion in June 2024. So by July 2024, additional cast members including Antonella Rose, Chrissy Fox, Clint Howard, and John Abrahams were also announced. And these casting choices added an intriguing layer of star power and anticipation for Terrifier 3. So filming for Terrifier 3 officially began in February of 2024, after initial plans had been to start in late 2023, but that was delayed. So principal photography wrapped up in April 2024, then with additional scenes being shot in New York through early to mid-June. And Leone's choice to shoot the film using Panavision anamorphic lenses was a deliberate effort to capture a vintage Carpenter aesthetic, invoking the gritty, atmospheric feel of 80s horror classics. And this decision was also driven by a desire to distinguish Terrifier 3 from modern horror trends, giving it a more timeless, tactile look. So the film's production budget, too, was notably higher than its predecessors, coming in at $2 million, a massive jump from the first film's $250,000. However, Variety noted that despite this increase, the budget remains wildly low by Hollywood standards, which is true. I will say for an independent film that is an independent like director and crew, that's a massive jump. Like that's what 4 times the budget, or no, sorry, 8 times the budget. Underscoring the indie nature of the Terrifier franchise and its ability to create visceral, high-impact horror on a shoestring budget, which is true because you look at the effects and everything that they're able to do with a small budget from the first 2 films, and then what you get to see with the third film, exactly what that means with a higher budget. Terrifier 3 was theatrically released in the United States on October 11th, 2024 by Cineverse, who acquired the distribution rights in June 2023. The film's release was set for a wide theatrical rollout in partnership with Iconic Events Releasing, while also making it exclusive streaming debut on Cineverse's Screenbox service. Initially scheduled for October 25th. The release date was moved up to October 11th in May 2024 to capitalize on the buzz surrounding the franchise's success. The film made its world premiere on opening night at the 2024 Fantastic Fest on September 19th. In select AMC theaters, Terrifier 3 was shown as part of a special double feature with Terrifier 2. Oh, that would have been cool to see. Followed by a music video presentation for the film's official song, A Work of Art, by Ice Nine Kills, which I should probably take a look at one of these days, do an episode on them. The video featured a guest appearance from Shavo Odogen, bassist of System of a Down. I know I'm probably butchering his last name. The song was released as a single alongside the film's theatrical debut on October 11th. Cineverse reportedly spent less than $5 million to acquire and market the film. The advertising campaign, targeting Cineverse's dedicated Bloody Disgusting fan base and 80 million streaming subscribers across 30 channels, was relatively modest at $500,000. Additionally, acquisition costs were covered by a loan, the lender receiving 50% of royalties. Notably, the film opted against submitting for a Motion Picture Association, the MPAA, rating to avoid risk of receiving an NC-17 rating. So, with all that being said, let's get straight into Terrifier 3.
You survived the most famous serial killer since Jack the Ripper. The 5-year anniversary is coming up. I think a lot of people would really like to hear from you after all this time. Want to know what it's like to be in the presence of that kind of evil. What goes through your brain when he's close enough to you and feel his breath. I saw him today.
Who? How can you be sure it was really him?
I could feel it.
Who's this Santa? He's scaring my kid.
Yeah, he's scaring me too.
Hey, Santa's handing out presents!
Why would he come back here? Even if he was alive, which he isn't. Wouldn't you want to get as far away from here as possible, as far away from you?
You both know this isn't over. I have to go back to the Terrifier.
still buried there, isn't it?
Might be the only thing that could stop them. Looking forward to the best Christmas ever, filled with fun, smiles, and laughter.
The film opens on a quiet house just before Christmas. Art breaks into the house and brutally kills all 4 family members with an axe in their own home. We cut to 5 years earlier, the morning after being beheaded by Sienna Shaw. Art the Clown's headless body decapitates a cop responding to the scene and makes his way to the asylum where survivor Victoria Hayes, now possessed by the little pale girl, has just given birth to Art's own head. After reattaching his head to his body, Art and Victoria continue to be played by David Howard Thornton and Samantha Scafidi, respectively, kill a nurse and guard before entering an abandoned house and going into hibernation. We cut back to 5 years later. Sienna, still played by Lauren Lavera, is released from a mental health center to stay with her Aunt Jess, her husband Greg, and their daughter Gabby, who idolizes Sienna but has no knowledge of the events she endured. They are played by Margaret Ann Florence, Bryce Johnson, and Antonella Rose, respectively. Sienna is suffering from survivor guilt and frequently has hallucinations of her deceased best friend Brooke, whose death she feels responsible for. She struggles to reconnect with her younger brother Jonathan, still played by Elliot Fullman, who is now in college trying to move on with his life. Art and Victoria are awoken from their slumber when 2 demolition workers stumble upon them in the house. The duo kills the workers and Victoria begins working on a costume, while Art ventures off on another killing spree. Art meets a Santa Claus impersonator at a bar, where Art kills him and takes his Santa suit. Art poses as a mall Santa and uses explosives disguised as presents to kill several people at the mall, many of them children. Sienna thinks she sees Art at the mall in disguise before the explosion, but does not tell her family since she thinks they would not believe her and is unsure herself if it was simply a hallucination or not. Sienna visits Jonathan at his university, and there she meets Jonathan's roommate Cole and his girlfriend Mia. They are played by Mason Micarete, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, and Alexia Blair Robertson, respectfully, who hosts a true crime podcast. Mia pressures Sienna and Jonathan to participate in an interview about the Miles County massacre, but Sienna lashes out. Sienna confesses to Jonathan that she thinks Art is still alive and shows Jonathan the letter he wrote to her while she was in the psychiatric hospital, which states that the demons can be reborn and possess hosts like Victoria. She also tells Jonathan she plans to return to the Terrifier haunted attraction to retrieve her father's sword. Art arrives at the university and kills Mia and Cole with a... Sienna learns about the mall killings on the news and panics, demanding Jonathan return home from college and warning the family they are not safe. Greg leaves to collect Jonathan while Sienna falls asleep. She dreams of her father, Michael Shaw, played by Jason Patric, and one of the angels crafting the armor from her warrior costume that he drew for her. Sienna wakes to hear Jess and her husband downstairs discussing what they should do about her worsening condition. When she walks into the dining room, Sienna instead finds Art and Victoria decorating Greg's decapitated and eviscerated body pinned to the wall. Sienna runs by but is incapacitated by Art with a mallet. As Sienna regains consciousness, she finds herself and Jess tied to chairs and gagged, and Greg's severed head being used as a star on the Christmas tree. Victoria shows them a skinless head being consumed by rats, telling her it's Gabby's. Art and Victoria then kill Jess by hammering a tube into her throat, forcing rats down it, and slitting her throat. Art suddenly enters with Gabby as a hostage, and Victoria claims to Sienna that the head is Jonathan's. Victoria places a crown of thorns on Sienna's head and tries to possess her, but she resists because her will is not yet broken. Victoria tells Sienna to open her Christmas gift from Gabby. Sienna breaks free and, with her father's sword, which she hid in the present, cuts Art's throat and decapitates Victoria. Victoria's pool of blood burns through the floor and creates a portal to hell. As Sienna and Art fight, Gabby falls in and holds onto the edge. Sienna finally gains an advantage by impaling Art on a wall, but leaves him in order to save Gabby, who eventually falls into the abyss with the sword. Art flees through a window and boards a city bus, and Sienna looks down at her wounded hands as they heal, vowing to find and rescue Gabby. Now we move on to some trivia about the film Terrifier 3. Here we learn about the behind the scenes, the production, and the actors. So to start off, director Damien Leone said that several big studios showed interest in financing the film based on the unexpected success of Terrifier 2, even without a full script. But he turned them all down because he is certain that they would never let him film the opening scene alone, which I completely agree. And he describes as very controversial. Leone commented that the only reason that he can be so uncompromising in his depiction of horror and gore is because he finances his movies independently, creates all the special effects himself to keep costs down, and has no big studio breathing down his neck to make the movie more mainstream. Which I do agree, and I applaud, and I think honestly that's great. I like that. I like that about Terrifier, the series, that it still has its own feel. It hasn't changed over to feel more commercial, more robotic, more in line with what what modern horror would be. I like that. Like, he's like, you know what? I know how I want for this. I know what aesthetic, and I know I know what it's gonna look like. I know what I'm editing it. I have in my head, I wrote this. So for him to be able to control that more, I think is good. You know, sometimes it's not always great to let people kind of do what they want, but when they're like this, when they're really good artists, they're really good at crafting these narratives. I think that's when they've shown that, that's when you should be like, oh, he's not an auteur. He knows a little bit more than what he's just doing. But I mean, good on him for sticking with Terrifier 2. Not Terrifier 2, like the sequel, but Terrifier also, like, he could have moved on from the second one to do something different, helm something else. But he's like, no, I'm just going to do the third one now. And then hopefully we'll do, like, the fourth one, and maybe the fifth one. Who knows? Maybe Art could be around like Michael Myers or something. Distributor, Cineverse, had only one request, and that was to make the film under 2 hours long. Damien Leone, who served as his own editor, again recalled ripping out pages while filming to make the film shorter, realizing it would be too long and not have time to film the scenes. The ending was much longer and was cut down. Despite trying his best to meet his request, Damien submitted his final cut at 2 hours and 5 minutes. And I wish it, honestly, I like long movies. I like when you give them time to breathe. You let scenes kind of drag out a little bit longer. So maybe that's why I like Terrifier 2 a little bit more too. Was it felt like it had more to it, and I feel like there's a lot in this one too. Like the first one where it's like, yeah, he cut down on some things. He cut some things out here and there, just to make you, cry or laugh or feel scared or feel whatever. And yeah, it's like he wanted it a certain length, and then they come in and they're like, oh well, we kind of want under. I mean, because most horror films are barely an hour and a half, if that. So for something to be 2 hours long, two and a half hours with the second one, I mean, there's so much that he wanted to show, so much that he wanted to do, but ultimately, I feel like this is a good compromise. 2 hours and 5 minutes. Towards the end of the film, where a woman is on a bus reading a book called The Ninth Circle, the author's picture is that of the film's costume designer, Olga Turka, and The Ninth Circle is the name of the short that art originated, which was became part of All Hallows Eve, which is where we were introduced to art as this more sinister, supernatural character. And I'm glad he's referencing it. I'm hoping it pulls in more mythology with the next film, because we know that there's going to be a Terrifier 4. This movie did too well for there not to be a Terrifier 4. But hopefully, they start expanding on. And I like that they add the costume designer's picture. They don't get as much recognition as they deserve, and this just is one of those things where it's like, wow, okay, cool. Leone stated in several interviews that the Christmas theme was directly influenced by the 1972 film and 1989 TV series adaptation of Tales from the Crypt. Both featured a story called All Through the House, about a mental patient dressed as Santa Claus on a killing spree. This is Leone's favorite version of a killer Santa, and the cold open of Terrifier 3 is an homage to that. Which you can kind of feel like it just takes from everything, right, from the 80s that they were trying to do with horror. I don't really feel the Black Christmas influence. I mean, you'll get some references here and there, but yeah, that opening seemed like it was referencing some other stuff in general, but not really getting that Black Christmassy vibe necessarily. I think taking from, the old Tales from the Crypt, getting those ideas rather than, trying to do something more modern, taking from more modern is a better idea anyways. I think it fits with Terrifier anyways. It fits that aesthetic a lot better. Legendary makeup artist John Caglione Jr., most famous for working on The Dark Knight's Joker makeup, told Damien Leone he was a fan of Terrifier 1 and 2 and offered to work on the film, which Leone quickly accepted. Shit, if one of my favorite directors or producers or someone or actors wanted to be on my film, I'd be like, yes, you're there. You're gonna be there. You're gonna be there. I'd try to make sure that they were actually gonna be there. I wouldn't want them being like, oh yeah, I said I'd show up. Maybe, I don't know. I'd be like, no, you gotta be there. You gotta be there. You gotta show me how it's done. But I like that. I like that he was like, yeah, I'm a big fan. I'll come and help. I'll work on the film. I want to work on the film. And he did. And I think it added to, I like that it's still consistent with the first films. And the first two films gore, but, there's just, gore's amped up more. In this one, I still think the scene in the second one tops all of them, but this one still had a pretty good amount of gore. Pretty good amount of gore. Pretty good. Kill counter. Now we've arrived at the kill counter. This is the part of the podcast where we go through the kills and the deaths in the film. And there are a total of 23 kills and deaths in the film Terrifier 3. So let's not hesitate and get through this. First up, we have 4 kills. First is Timmy Thomas of the Thomas family. This is when Art sneaks into the house on Christmas or around Christmas. I think it's implied to be before Christmas. He gets stabbed 7 times and dismembered by Art the Clown with an axe. Normally, I wouldn't talk about anything that happens off screen, but when they do show it again, or it's relevant to the story, then I'll talk about it. And this time, there's shown that like what he did, and it's like, man, you really butchered that little kid. Then his father, Mark Thomas, is decapitated after being hacked 7 times in the neck, arm, and side by Art the Clown with an axe. And it's probably the more sad ones because he's just like asleep, and that's when you get killed. It's like, you don't even know what's coming, dude. Then the mother, Jennifer Thomas, she gets chased by Art around the house, and as she's trying to open the door, undo the lock, her head is partially split in half after being stabbed in the back and stomach, and having her arm chopped off after it was repeatedly sliced by Art the Clown with an axe. And she dies there. You know, she had seen what he did to most of her family, to the husband and her son. And then we have Juliet Thomas killed by Art the Clown off screen. We don't know that he kills her, but it's heavily implied that he does. I think I just wanted to add this one because it's very, very much implied that he's going to kill this little girl. Like, you know, ifs, ands, or buts. Then we move on to Officer Evans. He's investigating the ride Terrifier, the haunted house or whatever attraction it is. That's when Art's body gets up with no head. It attacks him and rips his head off and starts wearing his head as its head so it can get around. Then we see the nurse that was treating Victoria. Her face is getting bitten by Art the Clown's severed head, which had come out of Victoria. It had been birthed by her. It's like eating her face or eating her body, probably just to grow nutrients or whatever. Then we have Adam Burke, who's the orderly. As he comes in to check on everything, he gets his lower jaw ripped off by Victoria Hayes and scalp partially ripped off by Art the Clown's body, which had come back to the asylum and discarded the head that it had, and they kill him. Next we see Maurice Jackson. He gets stabbed in the neck by Victoria Hayes with a glass shard before he, being killed off screen. But it's important that we know he's dead. Dennis, who was stabbed in the head with a large nail, fingers eaten and scalp cut in half with a box cutter, and his head skin ripped in half by Art the Clown. Next we get to see, which I think is a pretty cool scene, where at the bar, Art comes in because he sees Santa and he's getting excited. He comes in and he's all happy and like pointing at Santa and oh my god, like fangirling out and everything, and like they kind of entertain Art for a while, but then he starts acting like Art, peeing all over everybody, being just ridiculous. And so then they start accosting Art and telling him to get out. That's when Art goes to his bag and he does one of the funny things that I laughed at. I laughed at in the first one when he just pulls out a gun and he just shoots the bartender Smokey in the head, and lets him bleed out. And I think Smokey was the other guy. Oh, that's right. Yeah, Smokey is the one of the bar flies. He shoots him in the head and he just falls down dead. And then Eddie, I think, is the bartender, and he comes at him and he gets shot in the neck, and that's who he leaves to like bleed out. And then there's Charles Johnson, who is dressed as Santa Claus. He gives Art his Santa suit, and then Art has him tied down, and he takes liquid nitrogen and sprays it all over him, freezing him, and then starts bashing like his foot, his leg, his hand, and half his face, and starts just bashing it in, and killing him. Then we got Corey, who is a little kid at the mall that Sienna is shopping at with Gabby, and they end up leaving before Art goes and visits the kids, and he has like a bag full of presents. Turns out the presents are explosives, and boom, it just all explodes, and he kills some unnamed mother, that kid, Corey, then 3 unnamed kids, and then there might be more, honestly, but that's pretty much all I saw. Then we move on to a shower scene where Cole, who's Jonathan's roommate, and his girlfriend Mia, who's the girl who has the podcast, and they're having sex in the shower. That's when Art interrupts them, and he takes a chainsaw and he slices open Mia, and then starts attacking Cole. Cuts off his hand and fingers, his leg, and then slices through his rectum and his arms, and gets his head sliced in half. It cuts partially vertically through his groin, and then he also cuts Mia's face open partially and half the cheek, and it's just she gets sawed in half through the waist by Art. This is the part where you knew this is where the gory stuff that they were gonna save for. There's a lot of gory stuff, but this was the one where they're like, yeah, let's go all out. Then we move on to towards the end where Art and Victoria have decapitated and disemboweled Greg. We're not sure exactly which one did it, but we're pretty sure, because a lot of these ones are off screen, like with Jonathan. We just see his skull. We don't see really too much anything else. Jessica she gets tied down, has a plastic tube rammed down her throat with a hammer, and throat sliced open by Art. And Victoria slices her with a kitchen knife after they force rats to crawl down her throat with the blowtorch. And it's pretty crazy. And the final death is Victoria Hayes, although I would say she technically died before, because she killed herself to come back. I don't know, but this is when she actually gets this is when I would count when supernatural beings, if they kill themselves and then come back, I wouldn't count it. But here we see that she's stabbed in the chest and mouth by Sienna Shaw using her father's sword, and then decapitates her, and we get a feeling finally that Victoria is dead. At least that body is dead. So the little pale girl who's using it probably moved on to something else. And those are all the horrific, gory, mutilatingly depressing but fun deaths in this film. Alright, so now is the part where we get into my final thoughts on the film. So Terrifier 3 is the third installment or fourth installment in the Terrifier series. I don't know how you would count it, because obviously it's a little weird and wonky, because because what do you count? Do you count the short films too? Because technically he first starts in The Ninth Circle, then he starts in Terrifier, then he's in All Hallows Eve, which is kind of this cobbled together of those short films plus another short film plus a wraparound to tie it together. So do you count all those? I think what you would count is All Hallows Eve, because that's the first time we see him, and which kind of includes those shorts, so you're kind of including them already right there. Then Terrifier 2, and then now Terrifier 3, the fourth installment in the series, I guess. Then, anyways, I do like that he was like, hey, I want to do a Christmas horror film. And he stuck with that, and he made it a very good, hey, it's Christmas time during this film. You can totally tell that. Some other horror films, they take place at horror time, but you don't really get to feel like it's like, I don't know, sometimes they don't really actually feel like horror or Christmas time. Like Krampus, that feels like a Christmas one. Black Christmas too, like you get that feel of like the Christmas of like the snow outside and the lights and just like things here and there that just add to it, like the people leaving and then the feeling of like the quietness and, you know, the warmness inside the house. But I mean, I'm gonna start off with all the good. The gore, it's not as much, or I feel like there's more different parts with gore than there were in the other two. I mean, obviously that scene in Terrifier 2 with the girl getting like just butchered is crazy. This one has a lot of like that throughout in different parts, but not as much. So it kind of, I feel like it kind of evens itself out. I mean, like I love the effects. I love that they decide, like he's like, I'm gonna make this as gory as I want, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go for it. And that's why I'm like, you know what, for keeping it independent and you know doing it your way. You know, the story kind of lacks in certain aspects. Well, I'll get to that. But the gore is really good. The special effects are really good. And that's kind of what you want from a horror film sometimes. You just want to be like, wow, yeah, like, oh yeah, damn, look what he did. He ripped her face off. I really love the expansion of the story. I really like that, you know, oh, okay, logically, yeah, we're going to see her aunt and uncle. We're going to see the characters trying to move on. You know, Jonathan going to school. And herself, Sienna herself, you know, going to therapy, you know, getting out of there and moving on, trying to move on, you know, trying to take medication to get better. You know, she still sees like her friends appearing to her all dead, but you know, like she's still trying to get over what happened. And then, you know, obviously Art comes back, and I love that they also kind of expanded on the mythology a little bit more too, explaining like the demons trying to enter our world. They need a conduit. There needs to be like something that meets that conduit, and that's what Sienna represents. That's why they can't really do what they want exactly, because she's there to meet them, to stop them, to keep them from achieving whatever ultimate goal that they're trying, which I think is just to cause harm and kill people. I think we're not really sure exactly what the little pale girl's intentions are. We see that she's possessing Victoria Hayes now. She's fully in that vessel. So then Art is her. So then we assume that that's the vessel that, like, because Jonathan kind of explains it in like a note, like that it needs someone to possess. And so I guess Victoria's the one that's possessed, and that Art's just, it's like conduit, or it's like it needs something to protect itself here in this realm, and that's what it would be like. It's champion to put forth to fight against Sienna. I'm not sure, but I am kind of sad that like Jonathan died, because I didn't really get that from the film. I thought they had said something about it being him, being his skull, but then I was like, oh, this is kind of, man, like, he just got killed, like, off screen and we didn't see it. Kind of sucked. I liked the little cousin, Gabby. I thought she was pretty cool. And a good addition, too, to kind of play off of Sienna, to kind of hero worship her, to kind of, you know, get her to, you know, like, involve herself with the family more, and, like, kind of to want to, like, change. I mean, other than for her brother, but, you know, like, she was like, you know, I don't want this to happen to you either. And it was just kind of sad too that like she got dragged to hell out of nowhere. She didn't do anything. She was just a little kid. And I'm kind of glad that kind of sets up for the next one. But like there are just things here and there. It's like I wish they would have just been. I wish they would have let him do it a little bit longer. And maybe we would have got more here and there of the like what the Clown Cafe is. Because they didn't really explain that either. They didn't go back to that. I think it was because they needed to do more of the Christmas stuff. I think that see, the Christmas thing was like a double-edged sword, where it was like it's a kind of a cool thing to introduce it and to do stuff during Christmas. See art do Christmas stuff. Christmas kills, I guess you would say. But then again, like it's like a detriment to the story of like expanding on things and getting into things that where like, okay, come on, I want to see this, I want to know more about that, and like it kind of just ends too. Well, like I'm saying, obviously there's gonna be a fourth one, but it's like, man, it just kind of sucks that it's like if Infinity War had ended like halfway through, and you're like, what? Like they hadn't even got to the snap yet, and you're like, come on, like what's gonna happen? We gotta wait for another movie to understand this. I don't know. I just kind of feel a little bit let down. I wish they would have let him do a little bit more. That's why I wouldn't put it as my favorite one so far. I think Terrifier 2 is my favorite one. I think, he did enough expanding of like the mythos and like what's going on with that. And like I feel like with this, it's like he kind of like he knew what he was gonna do. He had an idea, and then like somebody was like from the studio or whatever was like, all right, well, you can do this. You just need to cut some stuff because, time plus money over budget with advertising with this and that and blah, blah, blah. Like, we're not going to turn a profit. It's like, yes, you will. Yes, you still will, because you guys are like the budget's not that big, but whatever, studios, they want to maximize profits as much as they can. So by doing that, you have to cut things here and there. And I get it. I understand it. It's just, to me, it's like, I just wish like we had gotten some of that. Whatever he's cooking up for, he's cooking something up. Because we saw too that there was like this person in, I don't know if it was like it's another demon and if it's in hell or not, like forging the sword. Obviously, it can't be in hell forging the sword. And then there's like the Mother Mary or angel or something that's like holding it at bay and like, I don't know, turning it good or something, or like, I'm not sure, but because she saw the vision with, I'm like that. I like that they finally like introduced the dad too, and like showed like him more, and like explained that like he has like these visions of like what's gonna come, or like of the demons or something. I feel like the inclusion of the Ninth Circle as a book too at the end on the bus, that's gonna be something we're gonna finally see come to fruition from the short film. So maybe maybe the fourth one will be when we get like the all out, like the demons are broken loose or something, and now we're gonna see like the things that we saw from that short film more introduced into this, because we know now that like a lot of the stuff from like the from All Hallows Eve, the short films, that was like where he had the girls, whereas in Terrifier that attraction. And I don't know, I like that they're tying things back together too. See, that to me is one thing I like, is like, okay, cool, see, like things that he set up a long time ago, finally we'll start seeing that stuff, but it's just taking a while. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't a bad film. I think people were more disappointed than I was. I'm not super heavily invested in the series though, like other people. I think Terrifier is an okay series. I wouldn't put it up there with like, I mean, like it's not better than like a Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, or definitely not Halloween series. But it is. I mean, it's better than some of the other ones too. I don't know. It's just, these ones are like, I like art, but I feel like people are putting them on a pedestal a little bit. But I'd say probably like maybe like a 3.5 out of 5 stars for this. It was pretty good. I think it did a little bit more to push it over, but not enough to like give it 4 stars. Damien Leone though, I think he needs to do something else. Not because like this is dragging him down or anything, but I just want to see what else he can do other than just Terrifier. I feel like now that he's done 3 of them plus All Hallows Eve, he's shown enough to me. It's like, okay, give him something now. Now give him something. Like, I want to see him do something. Have him do like Friday the 13th. Or not Friday the 13th. Nightmare on Elm Street. I think him having Freddy, he might do a pretty good job with Freddy. Or even like there was talks that he might do Friday the 13th. I think him using that like same sense of like being able to portray like terror through silence with like the villain. I think he'd do a pretty good job. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on Terrifier 3, guys. So let's move on to some scary stories. All right, let's get into some scary stories to end off this episode. So this one is about a haunted house. Straight up lived in a haunted house. I used to be a skeptic, still am for the most part because I know some people lie, but I know what I experienced was real, and I also don't know how to explain it other than something paranormal. Lots of weird stuff happened at the house I lived in with my ex. So then he goes through a long list of random objects moving on their own, and on its own ways that are literally impossible without an outside force moving them. I watched my dog's toy get swatted off the couch, tossed up in the air, and a few feet away from the couch, seemingly on its own. My ex and I both witnessed a full carafe. I'm going to say that's like a jug of water. Slide way too fast across a carpet top and stop very suddenly on its own. We tried to recreate it, but there was no way successfully. We saw a lot of weird stuff moving on its own in that house. Lights turning on and off periodically. There was no electrical problems in that house. Doors opening and closing on their own with no breeze or any other explanation. Knocking on interior walls where there was no pipes or anything like that inside the walls to account for the noise. My ex and I both separately and without communicating about it to each other would wake up in the middle of the night and feel like we were being watched from the darkness of the hallway. We were both pretty spooked when I eventually brought up that I'd been having trouble sleeping because of it. We would hear running footsteps from above us when nobody was home. We lived in a basement with only one person living above us, as we do have cats and a dog, but the dog lived downstairs with us, and the footsteps were way too heavy to be the cats. When I would stay up late by myself, frequent occurrence by the way, because I have insomnia, I would often feel someone touch my back or my shoulder. I turn around fully expecting to see my now ex-wife touching me, expecting maybe she came to ask me to come to bed, only to find that no, she's still asleep and no one was there. One time we went out of town for a weekend and got one of my ex's friends to house sit and watch our animal friends. We didn't mention any of the spooky shit to her because we didn't want to scare her off. When we got back, the first thing she asked us was if the house was haunted and described witnessing a lot of stuff that I mentioned above. And man, that's creepy. That just sounds like things that have happened to me and my family, just from like hearing noises, things moving across the room, and, just like seeing things without explanation, like feeling things. Yeah, those are just like common occurrences, and like when it's comes to like ghosts and supernatural, like things that they just do, and like why do they do them? We don't know. Like, are they just to mess with us? Maybe. Are they to, like, if it's to scare us, like, why, right? I don't know, just, oh, gosh. The idea of, like, hearing somebody, like, above you and knowing that you only have, like, a little tiny cat and a little tiny dog. It's like, something moving around up there, rummaging around, or, like, looking for something, maybe? I don't know. Just really creepy. Our next tale is No Exits. Me and my partner were driving in the middle of the night, somewhere between Arizona and California. It was a 3-lane highway. We were cruising in a slow lane, no exit for miles. I'm driving, and there's only a few other cars, about 4 to 6 car lengths ahead of us. Out of nowhere, I see headlights in my passenger side view mirror. That would mean that this car was driving on the shoulder at full speed. No worries, I take note of it and go to merge into the middle lane to make room for what could be someone dealing with an emergency. But when I looked at my mirrors, there was no one behind us. My parents said, Where'd that car go? Moments tick by, and there's still no car, no one behind us at all. Then we get this intense, oppressive feeling as if something went terribly wrong. We were going about 67 on cruise control. The ghost car was going fast enough where we both saw it and knew we should get the F out of there, or out of the way. There was no exit nearby, nothing but the shoulder, which the ghost car was mobbing down. I'm a skeptic, but spiritual, and there's usually always an explanation. To this day, we can't explain this car or the feeling we had after it disappeared. But the only explanation would be that the person who in the car slammed on the brakes while riding way too fast on the shoulder and shut the headlights off immediately. But that still doesn't explain the oppressive sudden dread we felt. Changed my perspective a little. Well, yeah, I mean, like if the thing kind of zoomed up alongside the shoulder and was right behind you, and then you decide to like kind of move over and let it get over, and then there's just nothing. Yeah, of course you'd be freaked out because it'd be like, well, I didn't see them turn anywhere. I didn't see a turn off. Maybe it is going down a road that we don't know, but like how, right? It sounds creepy because it's like this just happens like to like random people, just where these entities just come out of nowhere, and like they just do these things to screw with us, mess with us. I don't know. It's just some of these things are just so creepy. This one's called House Foreclosure. I bought this house several years back that was a foreclosure. When I got the house, there was a devil pentagram all over the walls and huge writing on the walls that said, "Not a slave to a God that don't exist." I completely remodeled the house, and from day one, I just had an uneasy feeling in the house. I always felt like someone was watching me. It's hard to explain. I'm a skeptical person, but by nature, so I tried to block it out. After I moved in, I got a small dog. Every night, it would sit and stare up to the corner of the wall in the living room and just stare and turn its head back and forth like it was looking at something. In my mind, I was thinking probably a rat or a bug or something. A couple of weeks later, it was late at night, and I was taking a shower. The shower backed up to the hallway. And then I heard that what sounded like a very heavy boots walking up the hallway. I got out of the shower, ready to find someone. As I walked into the hallway, there was nothing there, and all the doors and windows were locked. I just wrote it off and went back to the shower and never said anything to anyone about it. About 2 weeks later, a friend of mine was taking a shower. I wasn't home. She called me frantic and said someone was in the house. She said someone was in the hallway walking with loud boots on. I rushed home. She was crying and there was no one inside the house. Things like this happen all the time. These are just a few things of the many. These are just a few of the things, many things that happen there. I eventually sold the house. I often wondered if the new owners experienced this. I never spoke to them, and they only lived there about a year or two before moving. I still wonder about that place. And that reminds me of the place that we used to live that was super haunted. Hopefully I'm going to re-record those stories starting next year, because they're just on TikTok right now, and who knows? TikTok might be going away, guys. So we'll have to get those somewhere else. But yeah, like the sounds of like someone walking around, and you just freak out because it sounds like someone's genuinely there. Someone's in the house. Someone you don't feel alone, and it's a horrible feeling. And you know, sometimes it just happens, and it's just this creepy feeling of like, when are they gonna get me? Like, when are they gonna come out? Our last story is called Convinced of a Haunted House. I'm convinced I lived in a haunted house. We rented it with 3 other friends. All of us felt uneasy in the house when alone, or even being alone in the room. Every time I washed the dishes in the kitchen, I kept turning around as I kept having a feeling like someone was watching. None of us wanted to take a shower alone, as the bathroom for some reason was the creepiest place in the house. So we either kept the door open or had someone keep us company when in the shower. No joke. All of us in our mid-20s, mind you. Then one day my friends all leave for work at 5 a.m. We all worked at the same warehouse at that time. I was ill that day, so stayed home. I woke up at 4 a.m. with them because I could hear everyone start moving in the house. So I got up and had a cup of tea with them before they left for work at 5 a.m. Now I'm alone in the house. I went back to my room, switched off the lights, and climbed into bed. As soon as I lay down in the pitch black, I heard a very loud laughter cackle right in the room in the dark. Honestly, I heard it so loud, so unmistakably right there in the room. I jumped out of bed, switched on the lights, got dressed in seconds, and left the house. I wandered around my area for a bit until it got light outside, and only then I felt okay to go back home. When we were moving house, my friend's mom and dad come to help from another city. They never visited while we were there in the house, and we only stayed there for about 6 months. And my friend's mom refused to walk into the house. She said it felt weird, so she helped loading the things in the van after they got brought outside by one of us. Since then, and before that, I've lived in many different rental houses, and never have I experienced anything like that. Not even an uncomfortable feeling, so I have no explanation. And yeah, like I said, like that's kind of how you get that feeling of like there's someone there, and like you don't want to be there when like the lights are off and it's pitch black and there's no one else. And or sometimes you like with my house, sometimes it's weird. It feels like, I don't know, it feels like there's like a weird divide in the house. Like if you're on one side of the house, you really don't want to go to the other side when you're alone, and you don't want to go when you're on the other side, then you don't want to go back to that other side. Just because it feels like there's someone there, or someone being around there, someone, I don't know, just inhabiting that space, I guess. It's creepy. It's a creepy feeling of like you should be able to like take a shower by yourself, but then again, you can't, because whatever's there, if something is there, it's going to get you. It'll get you. I don't know. So strange. Did you get everything you wanted for Christmas? Did you have any scary stories? What do you think of Terrifier 3? It's pretty okay, right? We want to thank you all for listening, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to get every new episode downloaded. Do you have any personal or fictional, paranormal, supernatural, or unexplainable stories? We love to read them on the podcast. Please send in your stories, recommendations, or anything else to horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to show more support, you can follow our socials on Instagram, Threads, or TikTok at horrorboxpodcast. Also, you can buy me a coffee at coffee.com/horrorboxpodcast. It really helps out. Until next time, hopefully you guys had a great Christmas, and hopefully you had a great year this year too. I know it's been ups and downs, and a lot of downs, and not too many ups, but you know, for what it's been pretty fine and dandy. And we'll see you on the next year, I guess. This is Dom, signing off from the Horrorbox. Those girls, lost in the 1980s. Nothing like this. The Laughlin.
Loveland.
The Laughlin?
The Laughlin.
I'm good.
Shit. Get a load of this fucking guy.
Friend of yours, Eddie.
Well, that was a fucking first.
All right, well, now, hold on, now, listen. I'm wearing the outfit, right? So it's just like Elvis. He gets the full Santa experience if he wants it, all right? Hello. Hello. Hi, hi. Yeah, come on over. It's fine. Yeah. Hi. Yes, that's me. That's me, guilty as charged.
Hey, Santa, it looks like you got a fan.